welcome back. Last night's episode of The Bachelorette went a long way in separating the lumberjacks from the lumber hacks. And Becca made it extremely clear that if anyone isn't there for the right reasons, it's time to get going. Now here to share a recap, as always, is Leslie from 106.3 The Groove. Nice to have you again.
Thank you. It was an interesting episode last night.
It was.
Well, we picked up where we left off last time, where Clay had left because of an injury. So he left the show, which I was really bummed to see. So we're at the cocktail party with all the guys, and David, who had fallen out of his bunk bed and broken his nose, came back.
Yeah.
And I really expected it to be worse, just based on what happened. He was bruised, but I didn't think he was anything like Jordan was making it sound like. His face was disgusting and you can't look at it.
Can I just say, Jordan's one-liners in this part were the best. He said, "I talk to God a lot and anyone who crosses me gets hurt."
Yeah, he keeps saying that. Oh my gosh. But Becca was super excited to see him. She ran over to him immediately, cut off Jordan basically, and actually gave him a rose before the rose ceremony because she knows he needs to rest, which I thought was very sweet of her. So he does get a rose before the rose ceremony. And then we go to the rose ceremony, and two guys are let go, which I honestly sat there and got, I don't know who these guys are.
That's exactly what I thought too. And Jordan, was it Jordan who got the rose last? I think Jordan did later, but
yes.
Certainly I didn't know who those two were.
Yeah, the guy with the long blonde hair was one of the guys. He had a man bun when I think he first came on, so that's how I knew him.
Well, clearly they didn't put enough effort in. I mean, that's just the fact. The producers didn't feel like covering them very much because they just weren't standout competitors.
Yes, and so now we go to Utah. They went to Park City, Utah, and the first one-on-one goes to Garrett, who got the first impression rose.
Yeah.
They really do seem to have a pretty good connection. I'm not a huge fan of his, but
why is that?
I've just heard some things about him that I'm not a fan of.
I think he's my front runner now.
Wow.
Just because they had that sort of easy going, he doesn't seem to have a lot of issues. I mean, we learn about some later.
Yes.
That he had a weird past relationship.
But they get to go bobsledding on an Olympic course. How cool is that? And they do. They click really well together. We find out at dinner, though, that he was married before, which we didn't know. It was a very quick 2-month marriage, but they had been together for a couple years. He said that she was emotionally abusive to him, would tear him down and build him back up and stuff, and he stayed to try to make it work, but he said he was the first one in a long line of his family that ever divorced, and that was tough on him. It worries Becca only because is he going to be ready to commit with her if it's down to him at the end? He says he is, and they wouldn't propose unless he meant it. And she gives him the rose.
I think he'll be a finalist, and the reason is because the chemistry I saw was so great, but also he reminds her so much of her dad, who's now passed, and so
she did mention that.
She thinks her dad would approve.
Yes, and so now we go to the huge group date, which is 13 guys.
Yeah.
Get to go do some lumberjacking.
Can I just say, this looks like a ton of fun. I would love to do a day like this.
That was pretty fun to be able to watch that stuff, and the guys looked really good. John actually was the standout guy, who's not as strong as some of the other guys.
Yeah.
So it was pretty impressive to see how well he did. He got the golden, wood trophy, whatever they gave him, which was kind of fun because they did a little competition. But at the cocktail party, she was really getting along with she's really making some connections with some guys, including Colton and Jason, and of course Blake, who I think is also a front runner. But Jean Blanc. Was really like, I have something to give her, I have something to tell her. So he gave her a fragrance that he created with a big fragrance company, and it was called Becca Blanc. He's like, I basically want you to take my name. A little premature on that.
It makes me want to cross my arms, this part, because I was so uncomfortable watching it.
It was awkward, because then he literally says to her, I'm falling in love with you. And her look was like, it was awkward because she was silent. And she was like, wow, that's really soon. I don't think I'm on the same page with you. And she basically says, I'm sending you home. And then as she's leaving, he says, oh, I didn't mean what I said earlier. I just thought that's what you wanted me to say.
And it
which just made her so mad.
Well, it would make anyone mad. It sounded like he wanted the perfume back, too.
Yes! He was asking about the gift, and she goes, well, it was very thoughtful. And I was waiting for him to say, can I have it back?
So he made the house sort of feel weird, but the next day there was a nice antidote to that with Will's.
Yes, because she didn't give out a rose at that ceremony. She went home mad. She was in a weird mood on the one-on-one date with Will's. But he actually is very laid back, and he just said, look, I'm I just want this to be about you, and I love seeing you smile. And he actually kind of changed her mood and put her in a much better mood. They got to go snowmobiling, and beautiful scenery. And we find out later that night that he also has been in a relationship that was blindsided. He thought she was the one. She asked for a hall pass.
He certainly made a better impression on her this time. Let's talk about the final rose ceremony. Again, two guys who didn't get a lot of screen time.
No, I can't. Now I'm blanking on their names.
We had
even.
The guy with the very light eyes. What was his name here? Christian was his name. And then we have Nick there.
Yes, Nick was the other guy that I was a little surprised by him, but Jordan got the last rose, and he does not like being in last place. So look forward to a 2-on-1 date next week with him and David. That should be awesome.
The drama continues with the next episode of The Bachelorette airing on KGUN 9 on next Monday at 7 p.m. Then tune into The Blend on Tuesday, as always, for a recap. And be sure to visit 1063thegroove.com to read Leslie's blog.